She wanted me to give away my own child to my sister. I recently gave birth to twin girls. I had kept this a secret from my family to surprise them. A month before I gave birth, my sister's child tragically passed away from SIDS. My family mourned the loss of the baby. When I gave birth, my whole family visited me except for my sister and her husband. I understood because they were still grieving. News quickly spread that I had given birth to twins. My sister visited with her in-laws. Her mother-in-law immediately said that God had sent another baby for my sister, claiming one of my twins was a reincarnation of their lost child. I firmly told them that both babies were mine. They held my twins and looked at each other, convinced that one of them was indeed their lost baby. My husband quickly took our babies and kicked them out. Later that day, my mother visited and insisted I should give one of my twins to my sister because she was mourning. I refused and told her they were mine. The next morning, we saw on our Ring camera that my sister's mother-in-law was standing in front of our door at 3 a.m. praying. It sent chills down my spine. I threatened them to leave us alone. For an entire week, strange things happened. A dead bird, gutted, appeared on our porch and a red stain covered the sides of our home. My husband and I knew right then that we had to leave. My husband called the police, but they said they couldn't do much as it might have been a prank. The red stain turned out to be animal blood. They offered to file a restraining order once we figured out who was responsible. My husband suspected it was my sister's in-laws after reviewing the footage from the Ring camera. I told him not to escalate things since it was my sister's in-laws, and maybe talking to them would resolve it. I was wrong. After her mother-in-law's visit, I told my sister about the strange behavior and it scared us. I'm not sure if she ever said anything to them, but her mother-in-law kept coming back at exactly 3 a.m. praying. She would stand on our porch, whispering while tilting her head. My sister then told me I shouldn't keep my kids from her and said I should feel bad because she lost her child. She went on about how I'd feel if I lost one of my children. She had always been the favorite child and things usually went her way, but this time they didn't. After that, my sister terrorized me every day, sending thousands of messages and emails. One morning we found another dead bird, gutted, on our porch. It went on for a week. I finally called my sister and told her that if her mother-in-law visited again, we would call the police. My sister never replied. A few days later, all my twins, my husband and I started to feel very sick. It felt like someone had done something to us and I suspected her mother-in-law. My mother came to stay and help since we were so unwell. As if that wasn't enough, my husband got into a car accident. Someone rear-ended him on the freeway, destroying our car. Thankfully, my husband wasn't seriously injured. The second accident was even scarier because our kids were in the back seat. Thanks to my husband's quick reflexes, he avoided hitting another car, which resulted in a major crash with 2 casualties. One day, I let my mother visit to help with the chores. That same evening, my husband came home from work and woke me up, showing me footage from our Ring camera. While I was resting, my mother had let my sister and her husband into our home. My sister took one of the twins, cradled her and even breastfed her. They even took family photos with my baby. I was alarmed and furious. I didn't hesitate to file a restraining order against my sister, her husband, and my mother. Not only that, but I also discovered my mother had put a sleeping pill in my soup. My husband found the box right before taking the trash out, which explained why I was knocked out for 8 hours. I started to get really scared because they were doing everything they could to take my child. My husband decided we needed to leave our home and move somewhere else. We didn't stay for long. We moved out, placing our things in storage temporarily and living in a hotel which felt more secure. Finally, my husband found a home 45 minutes away from everyone. We were discreet and tried our best to ensure no one could track us after we moved. On the very first night, we saw her mother-in-law again in front of our new home. I was so scared and cried because her behavior was disturbing, and honestly, feeling helpless, I filed for a restraining order against her. We informed our landlord and they allowed us to move without losing our deposit, letting us break our lease. We moved 3 times within a year and the same thing kept happening. My husband then moved us to an expensive but secure apartment. We made sure the condo was safe with only approved guests allowed to visit us. 2 months went by, and we lived peacefully until we learned that my sister's husband had applied to work at our apartment complex and had sneaked up to our floor. He left a note on our door saying they wanted to see the baby. We reported them to the management and they eventually fired him because of the restraining order against him. My husband and I were exhausted. There were instances where, whenever we were out, somebody was following us. All of this was happening before our twin girls even turned 1. Imagine the exhaustion we went through moving from house to house because our family wanted our child. My husband and I decided to move abroad and live in hiding. We hadn't returned to the States for 5 years, thinking they had left us alone. We decided to move back because my husband got a great offer and promotion. We lived in a condominium close to his work. Honestly, I had never been so scared in my life, having to run away with babies less than a year old. Update 1. We discovered that my sister's mother-in-law had been convicted of killing her husband 10 years ago. We also learned of a shocking discovery. She had a room filled with candles and pictures of people she was praying for, or I'd say putting spells or black magic on. One of the photos on her wall was of me and my husband. That explains our sudden sickness and the car accidents. My husband and I have no plans to see or talk to my family ever again. I decided to leave my family behind for the sake of our daughters. Despite the fear and trauma, we've managed to rebuild our lives. Never in my life could I imagine this would happen or this happening to anyone. The lengths sick people will go to get what they want is astounding. And in my case, it was my own family. I can't even trust my own. Update 2. To answer the top question, where are my sister and her husband now? The last thing I heard about her was that they tried to get pregnant again, which resulted in a miscarriage. My sister suffered from a serious mental disorder. My mom wanted to reconcile with me and apologized for what she did, promising never to do it again. I didn't buy her words and just cut her off. Update 3. Somebody told my sister our whereabouts, but she was too late. She flew all the way to Australia thinking we were there, but we had moved back a long time ago. A relative told me she is still looking for us. My cousin, who I can trust with my life, kept feeding my sister wrong addresses and countries to travel to until she got exhausted. It took her 4 countries to stop looking for us. Honestly, if she ever succeeds in finding us, I am ready to confront her and protect my family. I'll take her out if she steps on my property. Yes, my sister actually tried to sue us. Remember when I told you about my mother letting my sister and her husband into our home after causing me to sleep for 8 hours? Well, my sister and her husband didn't stop there. They took it to another level and tried to sue us, claiming we had stolen their baby. They showed the court photos of her holding my baby. They even went as far as stealing my baby's birth certificate and forging it to support their insane claims. My mother sided with my sister and testified, saying my daughter was my sister's child. The court didn't buy it. My delivery doctor and nurse testified, confirming the truth during the hearing. My sister had a complete breakdown, screaming that my baby was hers and that I didn't deserve my children. It was a dramatic and terrifying moment that left everyone in the courtroom shocked. After everything that happened, my husband and I decided to leave the States for good. We realized we would be safer if we left. I want my family to live in peace and be protected without my crazy sister chasing us. This has been the most exhausting experience of my life. Thank you everyone for your support. I appreciate all the tips and suggestions and will definitely keep them in mind.